And welcome. This is Peter Winick. I'm the founder and CEO of Thought Leadership Leverage, and you're joining us on our podcast today, which is Leveraging Thought Leadership. Today, my guest is Lynda McNutt-Foster. She was named a business icon by Valley Business Front magazine in 2017. She's a contributor for Forbes. She's written a couple of books. She's a leading speaker. She's a coach. She has founded companies. She's got amazing clients such as the Cleveland Clinic, Orvis, Steel Dynamics, uh, Roanoke College, and what else can I say? And here she is to join us and share with us her adventures. So welcome aboard today, Lynda.
Thank you.
Okay, so how the heck did you get here? How did this happen? how did you wake up one day with a bio like that? Speaker, author, thought leader, CEO. How did exactly did that happen?
I think I'm terminally curious, number one. And I grew up in a house where my father was an educator and professional artist. My mother was very business oriented. They were in advertising and marketing, and it was 70s in Miami, and they loved to learn new things. And so Jack Canfield had a program called Insight.
Yep.
And we went to it, and I was only 16 years old at the time, and I was pretty hooked on this whole idea of you have control over your own thoughts and you have control over your reactions. And I was an entrepreneur at heart, so I was a lemonade stand at 6 years old and things like that.
I love it. I think that's the first I've heard of sort of the family trip to a Jack Canfield type event. That's interesting. I love that.
Oh, trust me, I come from a very interesting family. There's nothing boring about my heritage.
There you go. Yeah, but the field trip to Jack Canfield Land. So that's sort of cool. So let's see where we've got Cortex Leadership Consulting is your firm. Tell me sort of the what it does, and from a sort of thought leadership perspective, how you're using your content to find the right clients for you that you can serve to the best of your abilities.
Yeah, great questions. So, our focus is really to help leaders think more strategically, act more intentionally, and speak more effectively.
Okay.
The main content that we deliver, and we deliver it in whole and pieces and parts, we coach about it, is called leading a winning team. So, our philosophy is that we train and coach teams as a team because it's all about leading as much as it is about leadership. So the agile environments with which people are working in, they need to learn how to work together. And when you send leaders away to separately train them, you actually aren't testing them on how they're going to function within their team. You're doing 360s and stuff like that, but that's all after the fact. I mean, this gets them in a classroom and it teaches them how to get their team members to speak in an authentic way about what they're really thinking. And we create a safe environment so everybody can communicate effectively at their highest level thinking.
So you're working with an intact team. So obviously you have to work with the leader of that team and a decision maker. Connect the dots for me on how you use your content, be that speaking, be that books, be that articles, to find the right clients, right? Because the content is, there's ways that you monetize your content, and then there's other ways that you put the content out there for marketing purposes. I'm curious as to how put the samples out there in a targeted and focused way to find the right clients for you. How do you go about doing that?
So people are definitely attracted to the work and reach out to us either by referral. I've written about 500 articles over the last 7 years. Most Sunday nights, I publish to a very specific database of people who have signed up because they've heard a keynote speech or they've seen me on television. I'm an expert on WFXR News locally and there on weekly basis. So our philosophy really is to sort of attract them and then keep in touch with them on a very consistent basis. I also own something and developed something called Go Monty, which is an interactive texting company that's been around now for 7 or 8 years. It was one of the first ones. And it is designed to monitor, measure, and motivate people that are in our classes. So I literally get in people's heads like if you're coaching with us or training with us, you're going to have 4 quick touch points every single week that you're working with us.
Okay.
And my research is showing me that's how much support it takes to make real behavioral change and to support cultural change in an organization that is embraced by its team members.
Okay. Great. So give me an example then of where those articles are going and the focus of the content. Because 500 articles, that's a lot of articles. Thematically, what are the things I would expect to be hearing from you? I'm trying to get to sort of how do you stay in your lane in terms of content against the problems that your organization solves.
Well, the way I'm teaching most days, every day, I've had 3,000 coaching sessions with leaders over the last 5 years. I teach 3 days a week with groups. It's not hard for me to find content because I simply sit down on Saturday morning and go, what's the biggest presenting problem for leaders right now that I heard this week in coaching sessions?
So I love that. So let me just pause on that for a second because I think although it may be obvious, maybe not. So many people struggle with where do I get it from? And the more deeply you're immersed in the work with your content, you almost don't need to think, you don't need to think about it. It will come to you, right? If you spend 3 days with clients and you've done whatever many thousands of coaching sessions you just said, that becomes the genesis of anything, right? For you?
Absolutely. I have to listen, and our methodology is so interactive
Yep.
that people are immersed and engaged the entire time we're coaching them or teaching them. So it's very easy for me to figure out themes of what people are struggling with right now. Like last week, I discovered that there was a theme that it is a very difficult thing. I don't care if you own a $500 million company or you have a startup. If you think you're going to lose your key man, which I would call your rainmaker,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to cause you and to really feel a lot of anxiety and
Sure.
pressure. And that's a real thing regardless of your size company. So that's a theme that I'm listening to, that I'm working through with people, and I'm starting to discover that the organizational chart itself is where the problem is. Where do you put the rainmaker? So they're trying to put them in a position, but those people really want to just hit it out of the ballpark on a regular basis, right? So how do you have them be part of a team, have somehow be part of the organization, but know that if they're a true rainmaker, they're probably going to report to the CEO.
Well, I would think the other side of that problem as well, I've seen this in many organizations. How do you institutionalize that relationship? Because if you've got whatever a big chunk of your revenue in the rainmaker, whether you're a $50 million company or 500 million, and that person or team moves on, and you haven't institutionalized the relationship, that's a big risk. That's a massive risk.
It's a massive risk, and unfortunately, they don't think of it like a chess game. They think of it like checkers. So they bring them on, they feed them great food, they give them lots of money, and they promise them lots of things, and then they try to grow the organization. Then they go, wait a minute, we actually can't grow because we pay this guy too much compensation,
Yeah.
and like we've taken him care of him so much, it's not going to be fair when we bring on other people, or we have eliminated all of the resources that we could use, right, to bring on new people. So the way to correct it, they're finding, and I'm finding as I coach them, is it's about the setup, it's about the hiring to begin with, and it's about the arrangements that you're making in an agile type of way with them, but everybody else too, if the company is rapidly growing.
Got it. So talk to me about, you've been at this for a while, right? So 10 years as a speaker and more on the training side for 20 plus. What are the big changes that you've seen in terms of the way content's delivered, the way you have to justify the investments that your client's making? And you talk about the changes and the things that you need to be really savvy on today as a thought leader and content developer.
I think what's happening in our industry right now is it's the classic thing that Steve Jobs said a long time ago, which was if he had asked people before the iPod what they wanted their CD machine to handle 5 more CDs. I go to events and watch speakers, and there is literally no thought in regard to how do we use technology to listen and hear what the audience is thinking about what we're delivering. So we have, and I'm not talking about Twitter and Facebook and running it on the stage, because people do not give you real feedback when it's going out to 100,000 people.
No,
They
no.
just don't. It's a totally different part of your brain that's doing that. I'm talking with like the system that we developed and we use proprietarily with our clients, and they use it with their employees, is that the leader can send out one message, ask a question, and then the answers to those only go back to that person. It goes into a dashboard, and you can start running reports and seeing some themes and data analytics, so that you can understand what they really need, and you can respond to them one-on-one back. And they want to feel heard, and they want to feel listened to and understood, and they're not. So audiences are very attracted to systems of training that allow them to feel heard and understood. And it's not just a technology type of way, but how are you setting up those trainings? And is the facilitator still acting like an expert? Because honestly, how expert are we? I mean, everybody has access to the information I have access to, except for the research we're doing internally with the 3,000
Sure.
sessions we've had and the hundreds of training sessions. But honestly, anybody can pull up this podcast, anybody can pull up the YouTube video. I'm not actually that smart. So there's plenty of people that are much smarter than me when they get the information.
Right.
So how are we? We're actually talking about having conversations all the time, but we're not really having them, Peter. We actually aren't. We're still talking at people instead of talking with people.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. If we integrate technology, and we need to, one of the things that you mentioned is sort of getting this real time feedback, et cetera. Oftentimes, or I'd say sort of the old school way is, the facilitator goes in and they've done their homework, and here's a group of X, and I'm going to go through this and this sequence and whatever. And it never goes according to plan, right? So there's things going on in people's heads or whatever. But tell me about the demands of the on the facilitator of being able to react to that, because if I get the information, I don't do anything with it, that's kind of dumb, right? So now I'm getting this feedback in real time. How do I sort of pivot on the fly? Because that's not an easy skill.
Oh, it's not, and it takes a lot of commitment. I'm training a new facilitator right now, and I said the challenge with being a Cortex facilitator, for instance, is you've really got to know your material, because you walk into a training and there's 12 people, and we don't usually allow more than that. So there's 12 people. We do an opening round where we hear what everybody is thinking right then, and the entire agenda for what we were going to train that day could change based on what we're hearing in the theme. So you can't have to stick to a certain structure, other than my job today is to get to the desired outcome that these people want to get to and that they're capable of getting to. So they can only grow as far as you've grown. So are you even capable of a kind of deep tissue mind massage? Right? So if somebody is like, "Hey, I'm open, I wanna grow," well, you need to know how to directly, ask that person open-ended questions and deal with the response and deal with the emotion that might be there.
Got it.
They may talk. I had one today in class, she's angry,
Okay.
she's frustrated. I need to be able to listen to that, hear that, not respond too much to that, but keep her thinking. And that's not an easy thing. So I hear a lot of people that want to be speakers, they want to be coaches, they want to be presenters. And I'm like, today's world is about facilitation. You need to figure out how to facilitate meaningful conversations and allow people to feel heard and understood.
And it's a very different skill set. So let's go the other way on that. So number one, higher demands on the facilitator. It's not the, you know, linear blah 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 where I've delivered this program 100 times and I know that if you walked into my program at 2:12 p.m. I would be telling the joke about the duck or something, right? Those days are gone, right? Talk to me about the business side of it, where I'm the finance side of this, saying, okay, Lynda, this is good. I got to take my team through this program and it's going to cost X. That's a significant chunk of change. What's the ROI on that? How can how do you answer that question?
So this is great. So what we've started doing is creating measurables from the very first session now. Why are you here? What's your desired outcome? And okay, we're teaching you leadership. There's 25 competencies to leadership. Which are the two you want to work on? And how are we going to measure you that you're
And
doing
that
that?
happens up front with the client. That's a conversation in the sort of the pre-sale sales process.
No, it's actually once the first class gets in.
Okay, so that's sort of opening session, if you will.
That's the very opening
Okay, love
session
it.
is what do you want to get out of this? Why are we even here? And how are we going to measure? And then we set up accountability
Okay,
buddies. So we have a team member that says, I'm going to check in every Friday for 15 minutes. And then we have a system that checks with them to see that that happened. And if it didn't happen, we ask them, when is it going to happen?
and does that get to the point, or how often does that get to the level of, and if we achieve this, that will be worth X? So what is the value of that from a dollars and cents standpoint?
I think that we get there a lot when we're doing strategic planning or we're working through a specific problem, which comes about 4 sessions in. Once we get people to follow rules of engagement, we're increasing, their conversational intelligence. Everybody feels safe in the room. Then we can start tackling real issues that they have because everybody feels comfortable to contribute and everybody knows where each other's strengths are.
Got it.
So they're actually actively looking. Hey, Teresa, I know you're good with this. What are you thinking right now? And people start becoming more curious, is what we're trying to help them to learn is valuable in today's
So I love
workplace.
that. So we've got a facilitator that can facilitate on the fly. We've got a collective agreement around goals and potentially the specific ROIs to that, the ROI to that. Last thing I want to touch on before we start to run out of time here is the sustainability. And what I mean by that is it's a big word. Well, it's not a big word, but it's a word that's thrown around a lot today, is the sustainability, because oftentimes you take a group, a team, an individual, whatever, through a program, and there's an initial spike in sort of the display of the skill development, right? And then time goes by and that decreases. How do you sustain the changes that you're instilling, whether it's culturally or skill set or whatever, in the teams that you're working with over a longer period of time once you're not in front of the room with them anymore?
So it's kind of like J.K. Rowling. I mean, when I started this thing, that's the first thing I thought about is I don't want a suntan. I don't want to deliver a sunburn. It's great for a couple of days and then it fades out. So the first thing I did was develop the Go Monty technology so that it's really embedded and we can track them over a long period of time. I created a duplicatable technology so that the client could buy the software and keep it going. I then created something called the Cortex Council. So they can come to that on a monthly basis. They get the letters on a regular basis. We're developing something called a culture kit, and they're going to get those every month so that the managers have a paint by numbers for having team meetings that are based on the same principles and cultures. So here's a bumpy thing that you can pass around, but here's a 5-minute video you can watch, and here's the 3 questions you want to do rounds with to get your team members involved and get their feedback.
So I love that. It's multimodality. You've got technology, short form video, tickler questions, manager tools. You're hitting them with the 1-2 punch of a variety of different formats and modalities, short form little bursts to keep them in check, if you will, or keep those skills at an optimal level. I love that.
Well, here's what I would say, and one more thing that we do that I think is really the game changer is you bring your team. Well, guess what? Some of your team members leave, some of your new team members in, and so we have open classes, and they're quicker than the classes that the first team went through. So you can get somebody onboarded and up to speed with
Ah,
the work as quickly as possible, and you can send one person or you can spend 2 or 3 people.
so that's great. So if it's a year later and Sally from marketing's no longer with us and Fred took her place, he doesn't feel like an outsider, and we don't have to go through the. Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Well, yeah, and we're building things and videos and quick, fun, interactive things that will at least get them up to speed of the basic stuff before they can get to class.
I love it. Okay, so last sort of power question here, if you will. One thing that you would strongly recommend to authors, thought leaders, and speakers that are in your situation, maybe your situation, 5 years ago, in order to really get embedded into a client and have the impact that you're looking for. What's an absolute must?
You ready for this brilliance? It's what my dad said when I was growing up. Linda, you're yesterday's lunch. People remember you about as much as they remember what they ate for lunch yesterday. If you keep ontological humility in this business and you go, they don't have to turn me on. I'm as smart as the next thought leader next to me. Why is this person supposed to engage with me? What can I say that's relevant that they can use right now that's helpful to them? And do I appreciate that connection that I have with them in a real way that I show integrity and remain humble? Like, are my clients working 60 hours a week and I think I should work 4? Probably not going to go very well.
I love it. Great stuff. Well, thank you for reminding us to not be yesterday's lunch. That's perfect. I think that's true because it's easy to say, I'm a big deal, on top of my game, I'm a best-selling author, blah, 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 blah. That's yesterday's lunch, right? What are you doing today to continue to remain on the perch and deserve to be there? So great stuff. Thank you so much for sharing all that you did today with us, Lynda. Lots to learn from you, and I appreciate the transparency. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for having me.
To learn more about Thought Leadership Leverage, please visit our website at thoughtleadershipleverage.com. To reach me directly, feel free to email me at peter@thoughtleadershipleverage.com. And please subscribe to Leveraging Thought Leadership on iTunes or your favorite podcast app to get your weekly episode automatically.